what happened was we were in Montgomery, and I couldn't read the signs. The sign was up here, white only, black only, no, colored. And I didn't see the sign, and I ran up and just went to the water fountain. Well, as I came back from the water fountain, these 4 guys came and they were harassing my dad, and I kept...
They were white.
They're white. And I kept thinking to myself, these guys better really calm down because my dad's going to kick their ass. Because, you know, I know Dad. He's a military guy, and he takes no mess. And Dad didn't say a word. And it bothered me from 9 years old until 22. And I remember saying to my dad one day, why didn't you kick their ass? You turned and cowardly walked away. And he had the greatest line ever. He said, I had a choice that day of either being a man or your father. I knew that if I fought them, they would kill me. And I chose to be your dad.
So, when did you first realize that your life wasn't just about you anymore?
Man, shout out to Lionel Richie for sharing that story.
One of the greatest.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. So I saw that clip, and I immediately thought about a situation that occurred with me. It was actually the day that I found out. It was a crazy day. It was the day that I found out that my ex-wife wanted a divorce. So okay. I had approached her about a situation that I found out. And I will make this long story short because I don't want to, it's not about the smear campaign here.
Yeah.
But long story short, I found out some stuff. I approached her about it. She tried to, wiggle around and whatnot and say this, but I let her know, like, no, I know this is what happened on this day and with this person, what have you. And so her immediate response was, well, I don't care. I want a divorce.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when I heard that, and I felt it, like it felt real. It felt like, oh, this was.
You knew she wasn't joking at that
point.
I
knew she wasn't joking. I knew it was real. It shocked me because I had no clue that's where we were even at. Like, I thought everything was fine, right? And so my immediate thought, and I shared this with 2 of my closest homies, my immediate thought was like, well, life is over for me. It's done, right?
Interesting.
And I like legit, like, went upstairs and put the gun to my head.
Oh, wow.
And God stopped me. He was like, well, what about your son? Like, I have 2 kids, but he specifically said, like, what about your son?
Right.
And that's what stopped me. And I share this to share, like, Lionel Richie's dad in this moment when he said, I chose that day. I could have been a man and fought them.
Right. And they
would died.
Me.
Right.
They would have killed me.
They would have killed me. Right.
Right.
Or I could choose to walk away and be a dad. And in that moment for me, thankfully God, put an image of my son's face. And he said, what about your son? What about him? And that stopped me.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, today I choose to still be a father. I don't remember how I had my phone.
That don't matter.
Yeah, it does. That's annoying. You gotta have it the same way. You remember?
No, I don't remember, but I mean, you just had it on the thing right there. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Okay. All right. Wow. So, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That was that had to be a lot going on in your head.
Yes, bro.
At that time, a stressful time. I get it. But the overarching thing was that you actually sacrificed what you wanted at the time
Right.
for your kids. So that is a sacrifice that probably nobody will ever see or know,
Right.
you know, which is fine. Because as fathers, I feel like we make a lot of sacrifices that our kids will never.
They'll never see. They'll never know about.
Yeah. They'll never
They don't
see.
need to know about.
They don't need. That's the question. That's the thing right there. Like, they don't need to know about all the sacrifices. I know a lot of parents be like, well, I did this and I did that. Yeah, but you also made the kids. So.
Right. They'll figure it out once they have their own kids, if they choose to have their own kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out at some point, but it's not on you to try to put that on
Right.
the kid. Like, well, because of this and because of that, you need to be doing this. Or, you know, some kids are very appreciative and they see what's going on. They're very perceptive. And then others are just not.
Right.
they're just not, which is fine, you know. But thank you for your sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? Thank you for still staying around.
I thank the
being
Lord.
here.
I thank the Lord, man.
Yeah, 100%.
I thank the
thank
Lord.
the Lord.
It was a very difficult moment. And like when I look back at it, and when I told two of my closest friends, they're like, that was the first thing you thought about? And I was like, yeah, like the thought of like losing my wife and my family and everything, like, yeah, like that was. But what I didn't realize when I was in that state was like, not only would I lose, you know, my life, but I would lose them anyways by taking my own life, right? Instead of just, you know, losing my family half the time or whatever, my
Right.
kids,
Right.
and my wife, who no longer wanted to be in the marriage. Like, you can't make someone stay, you know what I mean? So it was like, it was definitely something that I had to mull over for a while. It took me a while, but I said all that to say, like, man, like, being a father is a choice.
Whoa.
Being a father is a
Hold
choice.
on now, sir. Hold
Yeah,
on now,
man.
sir. We just started now. Don't kick him in the face. Being a father is a choice. Wow. Okay. Expand on that.
Yeah. So like I said, I could have easily taken my life, but thank God that He stepped in, and I chose to not take my life in order to be a father.
Right.
Right. And I know that, you know, this podcast is about fathers handling business, and not just about, you know, making kids, a person who made a kid and has kids, whatever. It's about taking care of.
That's a choice too, though.
Yeah, that's the truth. But yeah, absolutely. But it's about taking care of the responsibility of being a father.
Right.
Like, there's a huge difference of, you know, laying down with a woman and making a child, and then also being a father, someone who comes alongside, who helps nurture and grow and instill values and morals and all these things, and is a present father, not just physically, but also mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, so all these things. And so that day I chose to continue to be that person.
Right. Well, again, if nobody else will thank you, I will thank you. I appreciate you, you know, making that choice. As you said, if you would have made the other choice, then, you know, you have eternal effects on your children.
Yeah.
Right. In a negative way. There's nothing positive they can come up with.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? For that. But, you know, with the choice that you did make, there may be some negative things that come about, but they can always choose joy and choose positivity and know that, hey, my dad, you know, was there, whether they acknowledge it now or later, you know what I'm saying? They
Right.
have the choice to say, oh, well, my dad, you know, stepped up and did such and such, and he was there from a track meet, and, you know what I'm saying? You say your daughter's about to go to finals, you know what I'm saying? In the
nationals, yeah.
or I'm sorry, excuse me, nationals, my bad, nationals.
For dance.
You know what I'm saying? But none of that would have been possible for you to be there if you weren't here.
Right.
You feel me? And so, yes, that is a choice that we make every day, you know?
Every day.
But is there a line between putting your kids first and losing yourself?
Well, what do you mean by losing yourself?
You know, losing who you are, right? So is it, now that my kids are here, it's all of them and none of me, and you know, I don't do anything for myself. It's all for the kids.
No, I mean there's a level of sacrifice, right? Mm-hmm. There comes a level of sacrifice when you become a parent, and yeah, you have to set boundaries in terms of what that level of sacrifice will look like,
Okay.
right? And so, I mean, even going back to the clip of Lionel Richie talking about his dad, like Lionel Richie knew who his dad was,
Right.
a military person who
Right.
don't take no mess,
Right.
and so there was a level of sacrifice that he was willing to do, and but then there was also a boundary, and that boundary was like, I'm gonna walk away so I can continue to be a father, instead of being a man and trying to
And
retaliate.
let's also frame this in the right context as well, because Lionel Richie grew up in a time that was very different from the times that we're living in now, right?
Yes.
And his father, on the other hand, grew up in a way different time than what we knew about now.
Right.
What we know about now, right? So Lionel Richie was talking about how he didn't read the sign about.
Yeah, he just didn't see it.
He didn't see it, you know, but he was a kid, so he probably wasn't paying attention, and you know, it wasn't at the top of his mind. But for his father, who grew up in a way different time, right? Just coming out of slavery, because Lionel Richie's in the 70s, probably.
Yeah, I think so.
70s or whatever. So, you know, my mom's in her 70s, and so that means they grew up in the 40s and 50s, bro.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And that means his father was from the 1800s, right?
Lionel Richie's? No.
Yeah, he had to been born at the end of the 1800s.
No,
yeah.
if your mom is, how old is your mom?
My mom is 72.
72? That
Right.
means she was
She
born.
was born in 53. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So my grandparents were born at the end of the 18th century.
What?
18th century, 19th century, whatever, in the 1800s.
Your grandparents?
Yeah.
Or your great-great-grandparents?
My great-great-grandparents.
Your great-great-grandparents. Yes.
Yes.
Not your grandparents.
So my grandparents had to been born in like the 20s or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Still. Still. That's when Birth of a Nation came out. In the 20s, right? Birth of a Nation is where we get all like the crosses, and that's when the Ku Klux Klan started going crazy, and that, which was all just a Hollywood thing that people just came up with. It wasn't anything that the Ku Klux Klan was actually doing before that movie came out. Like, it was just something that they saw, and it was like, yo, this would look cinematic if we burn a cross, and you know what I'm saying, all this other kind of stuff. So
That's a whole nother.
that's a whole nother thing. But all that to say is that from the late 1800s to the early 1900s and the early 50s and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
like, it was a different world
Yeah.
until what, 62, when did Martin Luther King come out and start making those rule changes, civil rights? That was like in the 60s.
That was in the 60s.
That was in the 60s.
Stuff didn't change tremendously like it is today until maybe the
Maybe the 90s.
the 70s. He said the 90s.
Well, because the 70s and 80s was, you know, black exploitation and, you know, the crack epidemic.
Yeah.
And
So it was there. I mean, it was getting us
it
in
was
different
phases.
ways.
It was
Yeah.
phases. It was phases. But, you know, it was a different world to where there was white and black water fountains and bathrooms.
Yeah.
And
also
places that you could go.
depending on states too. So
Depending
that
on
makes
states.
a huge difference too. Depending on states,
Depending on states. I remember when I was in 8th grade out here in California, we had a girl that had just moved out here from Mississippi. And she told us with her crazy accent, she said, yeah, she was like, they literally just took down the Colors and Whites water fountain. And this was like 92 94, 93, 94. I was like, what? And it was foreign to me. I live in California, so I'm like, what are you talking about? But she was from Mississippi, and so like you said, states is way different.
Well,
But yeah, back to what we were saying. I just wanted to put it into context that Lionel Richie grew up in a way different world than what we see today.
yeah.
Right? A way different, more overt separation, segregation.
Right.
Not necessarily racism, but just the system was segregated.
I want to actually touch on Lionel Richie, what he said too, how it bothered him that his father made that choice from 9 years old to 22 years old, right? And when you brought up like our kids, they may never know the sacrifices that we make.
Right.
That's a prime example right there. He didn't know, and he asked his dad, "Hey, why didn't you fight back? Why did you cowardly walk away?"
Right.
And his dad said, I had a choice to make that day.
Right.
And so these choices, when I say it's a choice to be a father for us, these are choices that we make on a daily basis. So like there may be times where, you know, the baby mama might be acting out or whatever. And
Maybe times? There are times.
there are times, right?
There are times.
But
You're not gonna act like there's not times.
But you have a choice to make. So like
Yeah,
we've seen on both ends of the spectrum where the father loses it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he may do something that he can't take back, or say something that he can't take back, or something that's they're gonna use in court against him or whatever, right? Or he can choose to walk away, to not engage in the craziness.
Right.
Right?
Right.
There might be we filmed an episode on a father coming to get his son because he had custody of his son starting at 3 p.m. and then he ended up getting unalived, right? He got shot.
Right in front of his son too.
Right. Yeah.
Which is wild.
So there's choices that we make on a daily basis on whether or not we're going to be a father, or how will we be a father? Will we be a father from jail because of a choice that we made?
Right.
So these are everyday, like you said, everyday choices.
Yes.
Everyday choices.
Everyday choices. But back to my question about balance. About, is there ever a point where you sacrifice too much for your kids? Is there ever a point where you lose yourself, right? Who you are as a man, trying to take care of these kids?
I think it all depends on the person, right? Everybody's different. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you can, but again, it depends on the person and whether or not you're going to have boundaries, and whether or not you learn how to tell your kids no. Like I've perfected the art. It is an art, people. I've perfected the art of saying no.
The art of saying no.
Yes,
You
man.
need to write a book called The Art of Saying No.
So I'll give you an example. We don't eat out a lot.
Okay.
I want my children to know that when we eat out, and I'm talking about if we go to In-N-Out, like it is a joyous occasion.
Okay.
So they like, if I say like, oh, we're gonna go to In-N-Out, bro, they are excited.
As they should be.
In-N-Out
is delicious.
They
so
are
I'm
excited, right? They're like, oh my, we get to go to In-N-Out today. Like they're geeked in the back seat, right? And so that is because I have said no so many times to eating out. Like, no, we have food at the house. I am Chef Tay. I be chefing it up in the kitchen.
You do be chefing it up. I do say that this man has an unfair advantage though when it comes to that, because like you said, you Chef Tay, you be chefing it up. I've had the honor of eating your food, and you know it's on another level. It's not just regular spaghetti and meatballs every night. So they actually are spoiled in that, right? For sure, 100%.
So it don't make sense to me to eat out.
Of course not.
Right?
Of course not. Of course, the chef is gonna say it doesn't make sense to eat out.
And disclaimer: I'm not a real chef. That's my self-proclaimed
He a real
name that I
chef,
gave
bro.
to myself.
He a real chef.
I didn't go to culinary school.
He just doesn't have a restaurant. But I mean, he's a real chef, bro. Like, come
Yeah, so when I say like, all right, we'll go to In-N-Out or
Okay.
we'll go to Chick-fil-A, whatever.
Okay.
They're excited
Okay.
because I've said no so many times.
Correct.
My son, like, he's in this phase where he want to like. Now, mind you, I have 50% custody of these kids, and I'm huge on influence, right?
Okay.
Who's influencing my kids, right? So you got to think about it. They go to school, they're getting influenced there.
Yes.
Teachers and their classmates, peers, right? They go to practice, coaches and teammates,
Okay.
influence there,
Okay.
and then this is like 2 different teams too, so football and baseball, right? And then they have their friends, right, where they want to have sleepovers or whatnot, and I'm not real big on sleepovers. Like, I don't just let my kids sleep over just anybody's house. Like, I need to know the parent. I need to, like, I can't just be like, oh, go ahead and sleep. No, I need to know these people, right? Because they too will, and the people that live in their house will also have an influence on my kids. Mm-hmm. So I've said no probably 90% of the time he's asked me to have a sleepover.
Okay.
Like 90% of the time.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, if you were going to school and then going to practice and then want to have a sleepover on the weekend that I have you, it's like, all right, well, when am I going to spend time with you? When am I going to have an influence on you? So that's important. That's really important to me.
Yeah, but I'm gonna push back on you.
Okay.
I'm gonna push back on you because now you're making it about you and not them. Because, and I went through this.
Okay.
Right. So this is why I'm very well versed in this area, because at a certain point it becomes less about you, right, and it becomes more about them trying to shape who they want to be and who they are in this life. And so you're not going to be able to control all of their experiences. I know that you want to control the houses that they go over and stuff like that. But I mean, you still can't control it when you're not there.
No, I understand that. And that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
So my point is, when I talk about the influence, I'm talking about, like, I don't know. Like, I'm talking about, like, what are they talking about? What are they watching? What are they listening to? Like,
and you won't know. Even if you think you know,
Yeah.
you still won't know.
No, and I know that.
And so what gave me peace anyway was the fact that train a child up in the way that they go. When they are old, they will not depart. And so 12 years old is actually when they become adults biblically. What? I know that's a total sit. Just bear with me. Bear with me. Bear with me. Right. That's why we have bar mitzvahs. That's why 12 is the perfect number for governance, because you can govern yourself at 12 years old. Okay. So that's a whole nother subject. We'll get into that later.
We gonna get into that.
We'll get into that.
We gonna get into
for
that.
the purposes of this conversation, just understand that you have done your thing with your child for 12 years plus, right? And so at that point, they're getting to the point where they're trying to experience life without you. Right. And so they need to be able to use some of the tools that you give them. And you can't do that if you're censoring where they are, what they're doing, who they're being influenced by. Because remember, they can be an influencer too. And I know you feel like, he's not a leader and all that kind of stuff, but you have to trust in God and trust in the values that you've instilled in him.
Right.
And it's one of those things where, like, I have hammers, I have tools, I have stuff, right? But I don't always need to use them, right? Until I'm put in a situation where I need to hammer something, I don't pull out my hammer. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to give them the opportunity to be in situations so that they can use the tools that you gave them, so that they're not influenced, they are being the influencer. And so I had to learn this as my kids started growing up, as they started wanting to hang out with their friends more than hang out with me, even on my weekends.
Right.
Right. And I know that sucks as a father, especially if you only have them 50%. I know that sucks. Like,
Yeah.
It does. But at the end of the day, it's not about you. Right?
Yeah. And I'm not making it about me.
Well, it is. You're making it about you if you're mad that they're going somewhere on your day.
No. It's only about the influence. That's the only concern that I have.
Okay.
So it's about the influence. So when you brought up training up the children, and I disagree with you in terms of they become a man at 12.
Now, I'm not saying that you just send them off and do what they do. I'm talking about governing themselves in that sense. But go ahead.
Yeah. No, I get that. I feel that number one, every child is different. They will grow and mature at a different rate, right?
True.
My son, he is influenced easily. Let's just put it that way, right? And so,
And that means that your influence has been on him just as easy.
I hope to God, I hope.
I'm just saying, if he's influenced easy, the influence doesn't shut off when he comes home.
Man, do you know how these kids be like? They hear what they want to hear.
No.
I mean, you might be right though, because he does like be finishing my sentences sometimes.
That's what I'm saying. So you just don't think that he hears it, right? But as I said, like sometimes you got tools in your tool belt, but you only use them when they arrive.
All right, so you making sense.
Of course I'm making sense. What is this guy?
I'll share a story. This actually just happened last Thursday, last day of school.
Okay.
And I was hot and proud at the same time. So my son was at Starbucks. A fight breaks out.
Okay.
And he's there. He doesn't he's not doing anything. But then one of the friends of the kid that got in the fight, like, says something. He was like, "Who said that so and so got beat up?" And he just looks around. He was like, "Did you say it?" And then he pushes my son. And my son is like, "I'm not gonna fight you." And then he pushes my son again, and then smacks him.
Whoa.
And then throws water on him.
Whoa. Okay.
And this whole time, my son is like, "I'm not gonna fight you." And so I'm like, I'm hot.
And then what happens after that, though?
And then the cops came and this dude runs with his friend or whatever, right?
And your son, what did your son do that whole time?
Nothing. He was inside waiting for his drink, and then he just left after that with his friends.
So you and I are doing this 40-day discipline, right?
Yes.
And yesterday was Proverbs 15.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to pull this up real quick. Proverbs 15:1 says, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh words stirs up anger."
Right.
Hey, man. He
Yeah.
was following biblical principles.
So look, I'm telling you, I was hot and I was proud. I'm hot because I'm like, that's my son.
Right. But
That's
just
my
think if he would have retaliated.
Yes.
Right. And then the cops pulled up.
Yes.
Right. Then they're arresting him too.
Yes.
Because
Because he
they don't
retaliated.
know.
Yeah,
They don't
exactly.
know who started it. They
Right.
just know that these two people were fighting, and I don't know the color or race of them, but we know that your son's black. So
And the other kid he said he was light skinned, black, or whatever.
okay, whatever. Well, then that's even worse. Two black kids going at it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So they coming up, they pulling up, they taking everybody in.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? And then now you have to explain and blah, blah, blah. But he took some water in the face.
Yep.
Right? Wiped that off, and then he got in the car and went home.
Yeah.
Slept good in his bed last night.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, these are the lessons that we want to instill in our kids, and when they show stuff like that, and this is what I'm talking about, like that was his chance for that tool to come out.
Right.
He pounded his hammer, you feel me, and then he put it back in his tool belt and went home.
Yeah, man, I was really proud of him.
Yeah.
I was hot because that happened to him.
Right.
But I was proud of how he responded.
Right.
Right. And so
Because he ain't had nothing to do with the fight, right?
No,
Yeah,
nothing.
exactly. Like, dog,
Nothing.
calm down, bro. Like, I don't got nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for my drink.
Yep.
Right. But if he would have involved himself,
Right.
you know, and like, it takes a strong person to do that. I mean, that's why they chose Jackie Robinson. Right. There was
bro.
other baseball players that was better or just as good as Jackie Robinson, but they didn't have the mindset.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, that Jackie Robinson had. And, you know, they got that movie 42, you know, but one of the things that stuck out to me about that movie was he was like, look, yeah, you can play baseball, but I need you to understand that you are going to get ridiculed.
Yeah.
People are going to want to fight you, throw things at you. You have to be able to withstand that.
Right.
Right. And whether that conversation happened in real life or not, that's the truth of the reality.
Yeah.
Is like somebody had to withstand it. Same thing in the basketball world, not Julius Erving, but what's the other one? Bill Russell in Boston. Right.
Oh.
He was talking about like he couldn't even go in the same hotels as his roommates,
teammates,
and,
yeah.
as his teammates, and they was throwing stuff all about. Boston is traditionally one of the racist spots in America, and they were just on his head. But he ended up winning 11 championships.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Being a player and a coach, coach. Like he just. But you have to have that mindset to not let every little thing make you react
Right.
in a demonstrative way. And so kudos to your son, man.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Tell him Uncle Callie said, "Yo, I'm proud of you, bro.
I was real proud
I'm
of
happy
him.
for you.
I was
I'm
real
happy
proud of
for
him.
you." Yeah, that's dope. But kudos to you too for instilling these type of values into your son.
Right.
Like that comes from, and that's what I'm saying. Like we have to give them those chances, and we have to give them the benefit of the doubt to go out there and make mistakes, right? Because just 6 months ago. I don't even know if this was 6 months. It was a few months ago. A fight happened, and he pulled out his phone,
Yeah.
right, and got kicked off the team or expelled or something.
He got kicked off the basketball team.
Right.
Yeah.
For the same type of situation, he still wasn't really involved,
Right.
but his actions were different.
Yes.
You feel what I'm saying? So
Yep.
just a couple of months ago, he learned. He made a mistake. You corrected him. He learned. The same situation happened again, and he didn't do it.
Yeah.
You feel me? Or his behavior changed.
His behavior changed, and definitely for the better.
Yeah, definitely for the better. Because this time, like you said, last time it was the principal that came in, right? This time it was the cops.
Yeah.
That's totally different.
Yeah.
They're both authority figures, but that's totally different. Like if he would have got arrested.
But
or,
it's funny that you bring those two up, because how we tell him and Jordan, our daughter, about school, like school, think of school as like your peers or your coworkers, your teachers are your bosses. You're not gonna like all your coworkers.
True.
You're not gonna like all the bosses that you have.
True.
But there's a job that needs to get done there,
Right.
and that's your education, right?
Right. That's a good analogy. I like that.
And so, you bringing up the cops, that's just school translates into the real world. So
Sometimes.
no, it does really. Like, so think about like the principal, like you said, what in that situation, the cops,
Right.
right? And so I try to get them to understand why we need to excel and be successful in school and do what we came to do, because it's going to translate into the real world.
Yeah. I mean, that's like you said, that's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm extremely happy for him that he was able to learn from his mistakes and switch up his behavior. Like that's all you can ask for.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like to me, that grants him a overnight stay with one of the homies. Like I feel like I'm advocating for your son right now. Like I feel like you got to say yes now, because he has shown and proven that this happened, you corrected him, and then he changed his behavior.
Yeah.
Right. And like I said, it could have been way worse if he hadn't have learned, if
Right.
you wouldn't have taught him, like, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to do it, wop. And he listened.
Yeah. And to be honest, I have no problem with the homies coming over and having a sleepover at my house.
Yeah, but
come on over.
But it's different when I gotta, when you're the parent there. Like, you know what I'm saying? I get to act a little bit different when I'm not around my parents.
Yeah.
You feel me? But at the same time, you can still be an influence. I told you about, the situation I had last summer at one of my homies' bachelor parties. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like where the homie just came up to me and was like, yo, man, like I wanted to finish high school because of you. You know what I'm saying? Like I was trying to be like them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was out running the streets with them. But little did I know that just the influence that I had on my friends, even though I was
Without knowing it. Yeah.
right? Just because of who I am and who my mother trained me to be, and what she instilled in me. it comes out, you know what I'm saying? Whatever comes that's in your heart, it comes out, right? So, just being able to do that kind of thing, you have to trust that what you put in there, he will be the influencer, right? Even if he is at the time trying to, be influenced. Like I said, I was out running streets. I was, what up, cuz? You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't a gangbanger, but I was hanging out. You know what I'm saying? Trying to be, you know what I'm saying, whatever. But that's not what they saw. Right. That's what I was trying to portray, but that's not what they saw.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? They saw, how I acted in certain situations, how I was always trying to lift the homies up. Like, and this is what they told me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I didn't realize I was doing that at 15. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't understand. But like I said, the homie came up to me and he told me, and he was like, yeah, man, we was all trying to, do it for you and make sure that, what I'm saying, we made you proud. And wow, I'm like, what? You know what I'm saying? It's nuts. So, yeah. So all that to say, that had nothing to do with me. That had to do with, what was instilled into me by my mother, by my godparents, by, the people that poured into me.
Right.
Right. And so train a child up. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man. Let that man go get some, some overnight stays with the homies. You know what I'm saying?
Trust me, he does. He does.
So how do you wish your father or male figure had prioritized differently when raising you?
Ah, man, that's a good question. So I think, I grew up, I had a stepdad, and I feel like I've seen everything that he did. So my stepdad I had a legit stepdad.
Okay.
He was legit. I saw how hard he worked. He had 2 jobs at times.
Okay.
Like he would have his 9 to 5.
Okay.
And he would come home and he would go out and deliver pizzas.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I'll never forget that, right? And so just because I saw how hard he worked until he got the nice cush job that he wanted and that he was established in, and he didn't need the pizza job anymore. And that's the job he was at until he passed away.
Okay.
Pretty much, really. Yeah, he was there for, I want to say 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he worked hard. He learned to love the Lord. So it's so funny. Yeah, it's funny, man. Like the first time I met him before he met my mom. So I lived in Oakland, and I was riding my bike around Lake Merritt one way, and then him and his Navy buddy was running, like jogging, with shot glasses, like not whiskey glasses in their hand, but empty. Bro, I'm like, how you running and drinking whiskey at the same time? This is crazy to me. Yes, bro. But anyways, my mom, my aunt, and my little cousin were at this park by our house, across the street from our house. And so when I get around the lake, it's a 5K, 3.1 miles. When I get around, these 2 dudes is hanging with so apparently I guess my aunt knew his friend.
Okay, gotcha.
And long story short, they ended up getting married. And then that night, I guess the
aunt and the friend got married.
Yeah, they got married.
Okay.
And then my mom and my stepdad, eventually became my stepdad. They
started talking.
Started talking or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he knew the Lord, whatever. But he came to know the Lord. I just saw like a complete transformation. He was a spiritual leader of our household.
Nice.
He would hold Bible studies at our house. He whooped me one time, and that was because my mom made him.
Okay.
His form of discipline, bro, was sitting me down and having 2-hour-long Bible conversations. I'm like, bro, just get the belt, bro. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this.
Man, them conversations, boy, them lectures, they're lectures.
I'm
they're
like,
lectures. Not just conversation, they lectures.
Whoop me, bro. Just get it over
with. Nah.
So he was, man, until he passed, like he was a great stepfather. So shout out to my grandma Ring, who raised him by herself, because he didn't know his dad. She did a good job. Right. And then there was my dad. And so my dad lived in the Valley, the LA area, right? And we lived in the Bay. So I lived in the Bay from first grade to sophomore year in high school, the middle of my sophomore year in high school,
Okay.
before I went to go live with him. And I love my dad, and I just wanted to be around him all the
Right.
time. And I
Right.
didn't get that opportunity. So maybe the summers every year I got to see him. And I guess it's like making, I don't know. I honestly, like, I don't know what I could say to like making better choices to still be married to my mom, but I don't know if that's the best choice.
Right.
So I don't know.
I
Like,
don't know. Yeah. I mean,
I know who my dad was when he got custody of me, and from that point on,
right.
you know, I know him, who he is, and who he's been in my life as a father since then, and now a grandfather. Always showed up to my daughter's dance competition yesterday.
Looking like Morpheus.
Yeah, looking like yeah. So it's just like he's a present grandfather,
Right.
and
dope.
I love and appreciate that, and I know my kids do as well.
Did you have a grandfather?
I did. So my mom's dad, I was probably closest with.
Okay.
My dad's dad, I wasn't, and he passed away when I was in college. But we just didn't have a close relationship.
Gotcha.
I mean, they both lived in Cleveland. So both my parents are born in Cleveland. I was
Right.
born in Cleveland.
Right.
So pretty much all of our family, except for one.
It's in Midwest.
Yeah.
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 Gotcha.
They're in Cleveland, right?
All right. So how can we wrap this up and put a bow on this as far as making the sacrifices for our kids?
Man, I think the best way to put it is, number one, fathers, we have a choice to be a father every single day.
Facts.
And that choice doesn't just come in terms of being present or providing for your family financially, right? It also, you know, in terms of being there for your children mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but also the
Definitely
choices that we make on a daily basis, they can affect the future that we have with our children or not have with our children.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that we have to think about
They see
on
what you
a
do.
daily basis. Yes, they see what we do, but also our choices can have an impact on whether or not we're even in their lives.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So daily choices make up who we are and makes up who they are, whether we know it or not. As you said, being the spiritual leader in the house, right? It starts with that, you know, being submitted to God, and they see that you're submitted to a higher power, so they will act accordingly. So yeah, man, the sacrifices that we make for our children, they'll never know.
They won't.
But it's okay. But it's all right. Just as long as they turn out to want to make those same sacrifices for their family,
yeah.
right? Whatever those may be, we've done our job. So that's it for today. Appreciate y'all checking in with us. Father's Handling Business. I'm Callie. That's Dante.
Peace.